Hello and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haigh and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
We are, and we're on one of our favoured Sunday evening records straight after a classic final. We don't do too many of these, but we always like to do them, don't we? After watching some cracking snooker, which is what we've just done.
Yeah, there's the energy about the episodes when we do that, isn't there? And well, we have just seen two of the greats in action, haven't we, Phil? Mark Selby against John Higgins for the British Open title. And Selby has won the title with a 10-5 victory. So notable, back in the winner's circle, Selby, and also a really important week for John Higgins, bouncing back from his disappointment of exiting the top 16, getting straight back in there. So lots to talk about from what was an exciting week in Cheltenham, and we'll do that shortly. But before that, Phil, let's start with the news that snooker journalist Clive Everton has died at the age of 87. Whenever the story of the way this sport has been covered over the years is told, Clive Everton will clearly be part of that tale. He will be best remembered by fans for being a television commentator. He was with the BBC for decades, and after being phased out by the corporation, worked in more recent times for ITV. He also reported on the sport on radio and wrote about it in newspapers, predominantly for The Guardian. And although it was obviously more niche, it should be noted that he was the editor of the Snooker Scene magazine. Indeed, he was my predecessor in that role. There was a time, Phil, back in the 70s and 80s, when that magazine was effective in holding those in the corridors of snooker power to account. I got to know Clive Everton well over the years, and he was a good journalist, no question about that. We actually spoke for the last time during the World Championship in the spring, and I was very happy to send him in the post the Crucible programme, which included my special piece on defending champion Luca Brecel. I even signed it for him. If you've been involved on the snooker media scene for a long time, as I have now, your path would inevitably eventually cross with Clive Everton. As I say, when the story of snooker journalism is told, he will always be part of it. And Phil, he could play a bit too. If either of us presented a podcast with Clive Everton and we played for our own Tony Mio trophy, I can assure you there would only ever be one winner, and it would not be me or you.
No, that's true. Yeah, I think he was ranked in the top 50 in the world, which is some achievement. Yeah, quite a player. He was a talented sportsman. I think he played tennis at a decent level as well. Yeah, but obviously it's the journalism, broadcasting that he's known for, quite rightly. Amazing contribution to the sport. Not just through the commentating, not just through the writing, editing. But there's the story about how he sort of was quite crucial in the creation of the Masters. His fingerprints are all over the sport. And as was proved by playing for the club this week in Cheltenham. And it's really hard to imagine someone who, he was a player, as we said, but he's not known for playing through his contribution through other parts of the sport to get to that level of respect and recognition where you're having a trophy named after you. It's unbelievable stuff. So, yeah, incredible work for such a long time in the sport that he loved. And we should all, especially in snooker media, but the sport in general, be very thankful and grateful for his efforts. And thoughts with his family and friends, of course. I didn't know Clive at all, really. Only met him a couple of times, but what a presence. And he'll be sorely missed in the sport.
Yeah, Neil Nissi Bonham, Phil Haigh and I bringing you the news here on Talking Snooker. That the snooker journalist Clive Everton has died at the age of 87. Phil, the British Open has been won then by Mark Selby. What an effort from him. He came through so many close matches in the tournament, didn't he? And today beat John Higgins 10-5 in the final. Well, the final always looked like it would go his way, generally, didn't it? The standard was terrific, especially in the afternoon. Selby with breaks of 63, 85, 137, 88, and 135. Higgins with breaks of 80, 60, and 105. So it's sparkling stuff. Then tonight, the first four frames shared. So it went from 5-3 to 7-5. Then Selby pulled away, didn't he? Won the next three quite quickly, really. Bit of Higgins running out of steam, and frankly, maybe more than that, just Mark Selby playing so well, helped by breaks of 91 and 93 in the last couple of frames. So brilliant from him. 23rd ranking title. Finally wins an event on ITV, Phil. It's just seeing the football team now that can't cope with ITV. Selby's okay again now. But I said on social media, it's a bit like when I've caught us saying with Ronnie, how many different ways can you say it? And it's probably like that with most of our great champions. I feel like it's that with Mark. But there are always kind of new ways you can, I guess, express your admiration for the guy. I said, he's gone through more than most in life, and that's an understatement, actually. That's an understatement. And yet he has knuckled down. He's succeeded in one of the world's most demanding sports. He's made the absolute best of his ability and some. And he's just a great champion. And when you think of, some of the difficulties we know he's gone through in personal terms, it just makes the achievement just even more special and, something we can just admire so much.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. He's been very open. We know what he's going through sort of all the time now. He says he's up and down throughout his life and probably forever will be. So just getting him on the table and competing is impressive. But to do what he did and get stronger and stronger through the tournament, he looked so good in the final. Higgins didn't play badly at all there, and Selby ended up winning pretty comfortably. It's thoroughly impressive. It's not that long ago that sort of 41. I know that it's been skewed so much, but winning a big tournament like that at 41, not that long in the past would have been pretty wild stuff. But we've become so used to people in their 40s doing well that 41 seems young. But he's been at the top of the game for a very long time, and there's he can play like he will continue to be for some time to come. He's always going to be struggling with what's going on in his head, but he can clearly still cut it as he's shown this week. And yeah, full of admiration. And it wasn't. I know he sort of ground through some deciders early in the tournament, but that final was some sort of heavy hitting, obviously, in terms of like the tactical stuff between these two.
Those bloody gremlins, Phil.
Was it?
No, sorry. It's just slightly. Carry on, sir.
Okay.
Go on, have another go.
It was superb fluency and break building for a lot of that final from Selby. He was really sort of in fine attacking form. It wasn't just a brutal slugfest as it could have been between these two. But yeah, he just looked brilliant doing it.
He did, sir, very much so. And you never think it's too far away that a guy like that will win. But I like your age point, because kind of the class of 92 are now getting so near to turning 50. But they all do next year, I think. Those ones on the next bracket down that are also in their 40s, you have to do sort of remember that's quite old in a way, still to be doing it. I mean, whatever we think about, there aren't the physical demands of other sports, but that in a sense is immaterial. If you look at the history of the sport, players of a certain age haven't done it for one reason or another. It's still been, actually, every era kind of has its different nuance, but for a long time, it was younger players really succeeding. And now this era, it's just, an awful lot of players in their 40s doing it. And I guess, the likes of Selby, Robertson as well, Murphy, I suppose, and maybe going a bit younger, Judd's a bit older than some of us we think, don't we? The way we talk about people, they must look at the class of 92 and think, well, in the likes of Selby and Robertson's case, well, that could give us a good decade. In the likes of Judd's case, that could give us a good 15 years type thing. Everyone's different, but they must kind of, it feels like it's, their example is kind of, adding years on for their peers in terms of quality of snooker, the guys that are younger, if you get my drift. But I should say about John Higgins, I mean, Phil, talking about lost in admiration. I mean, talk about class is permanent. I say only he, not only he, others of that absolute top quality would, but it's typical Higgins. Out of the top 16 for the first time in 3 decades. What does he do? Gets back. We didn't say he could. Gets back in there a week later and looked really good. And do you know what I was thinking tonight? I think he's probably got more silver in him, silverware, but he's not losing to players that aren't amazing players in finals, is he? I can't think of many off the top of my head. He either Judd, I think it's been in a couple. Neil certainly. Selby tonight. He's losing to the creme de la creme, isn't he? He sort of needs to get in a final against a guy he's quite a big favourite to win, doesn't he? That hasn't happened. I mean, that tend to be good players getting to finals, but you know what I mean. He will take an awful lot from this, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. He lost it. He got to those few semis where he's losing to people you wouldn't really expect him to, but yeah, not in finals so much at all. And yeah, like I said before, he didn't play badly tonight at all. So yeah, he plays in everything as well. It's not like he's picking and choosing. So you could certainly see him picking up a home nations or anything like that. I mean, you wouldn't rule him out picking up anything. I mean, he's so strong at the World Championship. He's sort of as likely to win that as anything. So yeah, hopefully that'll encourage him. I know he had that little comment saying he wasn't sure if he's got that final gear to beat the very best players anymore, but maybe his absolute best he can't hit as often as he used to, probably, but he's still good enough. And if he wasn't running into an absolute peak Mark Selby there, he could easily have won tonight.
Yeah, no, I could. Yeah, I have to agree with that. He competed. I heard one or two pundits say that. Even if he does lose, and to be fair, most of them said they did fancy Selby today. Watching it all on Saturday night, Saturday throughout the days, they're sort of saying, not only one winner because John's too good for that, but they thought Selby was quite a warm favourite actually, and I think that's right the way they were playing. And yeah, he just needs to get over the line. I think he can. He showed his quality again, and played well throughout the week really. But let's go back a bit, Phil, and talk in more general terms about the tournament. Let's say it straight away. It was a mess at times, wasn't it? I mean, I said on social media the clues on 3-2-1 with Ted Rogers were easier to follow. Now, David Caulfield, I've always been a fan of, has been elevated to hero status for me now for including our 3-2-1 quotes in a news story on Snooker HQ. I've got to clarify, though, I think it's fair to say it didn't really particularly affect my enjoyment. I decided to just sit back and enjoy a lot of snooker matches on telly day after day. But I don't think, those sort of behind the organising of this tournament and people, obviously WST, ITV, I'm not convinced everybody's selling their wares as well as they could with this event. Certainly not this year. They didn't make enough of the draws. I think they've got to show them live at least. I don't mean the very, very late ones. I mean earlier than that. I don't think we saw a draw before the quarterfinals, did we? Not that comes to my mind, and that's a bit half mad, I would say. I honestly was not always sure what round I was watching. Wasn't sure who was playing who next, or anything really resembling a pattern. We were showing what matches were being played at afternoon. That was great, and then the ones coming up at night when they were going on air at just before 7. But in terms of what was developing the tournament, it was sort of hard. I found it was quite hard to follow. And I thought it might just be me being a typical granddad as usual. But you, Phil, a far more contemporary character, confirmed, didn't you? It was indeed a mess.
Yeah, they straight off the bat, they had the qualifying round in there. So from the start that people were playing at different rounds, but that seemed to continue for longer than you would expect. And yeah, I can't quite remember how messy it was before, but this felt messier than normal. And we've seen the live draws before. Either early in the rounds they put them on social media or they did it on live on TV. And like you said, that's one of the selling points. When they do the UK Open in the darts, which is the FA Cup style draw in that tournament, they get them on stage and they do it with the pundits, and it's great spectacle and the crowd get involved. And it can't quite be like that in snooker, but yeah, we sort of missed all that, and it was confusing to know which rounds had been drawn at times. I remember watching Higgins against Murphy, and Dave Hendon on commentary had said, "Oh, this tournament's a bit hard to draw to follow." But the winner of this could play Neil Robertson next. And I hadn't seen that anywhere. And I was looking around on the websites on social media for where this draw was to say one of these had played Neil Robertson, and it wasn't anywhere. And he was right, of course, but there was just no evidence of it. So it was all very odd. And yeah, like you said, that's sort of the selling point, isn't it? This style of draw, and we can watch that. It's all very exciting. But if no one knows when they're happening or if they have happened, then it is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, that's right, really. And the really funny, yeah, the really funny. I mean, you sort of gone over it there. You said it perfectly, yeah, as you so often do. But the really sort of funny thing was the first 2 or 3 days. It feels like they say it on nearly every interview with every player. It probably gets a bit much actually because it is sort of 4 years in, but they'll say, "Well, that's the benefit. That's the unique status of this tournament. Oh, you don't know who you're going to play. How do you prepare for that?" And it's different, isn't it? And we need different formats. They say it time and time again, and yet somehow don't deliver on those unique elements. Um, and listen, it was explained to me before, um, and I totally thought that's the right explanation. That some of the very very early ones are not good telly, too long, too long,
Yeah.
and too many either ors generally. But the later one, like which one I think were at the League Cup football, the last 16 stage, and that was drawn a few days ago. And I remember watching that and thinking that was about the right length to keep your interest and to maintain that focus as a viewer. I felt so that's okay. Maybe just do it for the last 16 draw, but would that have been the one that Robertson was in? Even the one you mentioned that wasn't even done the last 16.
No, it wasn't. No, yeah.
So I thought, what? I mean, that just seems so late to do it. And then they started making a big deal about, oh, we're going to do the semi. And I thought, well, yeah, okay, of course you are, but it needs to be before that. But anyway, I suspect that will be ironed out. I suspect they'll do a better job of that next time. But they sort of should do really because I think it's all about sort of selling your wares at a tournament, and I'm not sure that was being done. But Phil, let's maybe go back and look at some of the stories earlier in the tournament. We were on air during day one actually, and well, one result we didn't have. It was a match just underway, I think, when we were on air. Mark Selby beating Pang Jung Soo, sort of starting the week as you mean to go on type thing. It was 4-3 to Selby, and the final frame went to the final black. So that was already a narrow, dramatic win for Mark. Well, quite a few stories on day two. Graham Dott had a good win, beat Zhao Yilong 4-1. 2 half centuries from Graham in that win. Julian Boyko, result I noted down, beat Sidwai He 4-1. Breaks of 55 and 78 in the last 2 frames to win it for Boyko. Judd Trump beat Ryan Day 4-2. Now, Judd stayed on 999 centuries. I mean, the old 999 thing went on for a few days, didn't it, Phil? Chris Wakelin beat Wu Yiza 4-2, and Tepchaya Unnu beat Nopon Sankam 4-0. Maybe we'll go through a few more before we get to the last 16 and then go to you. Day 3, Zhang Anda beat Hossein Vafai 4-1. And then that night was actually really good. One of my favourite bits of the tournament, actually. Loads of matches within about an hour or two, all finished, and they were all close. Really, really enjoyable period. Stan Moody 4, Zhang Anda 3 was one of the matches. Mark Selby 4, Won Sijun 3. Another match that went all the way to the final frame and the final black. David Gilbert beat Ashley Carty 4-3. It was Stephen Maguire 4, Stuart Bingham 3 half centuries there from Maguire. Elliot Slessor 4, Zeus 3. A match I watched, Rory Thor, Neil Robertson. Cracking win for Rory in that 3-1 down. Obviously, Neil's just won a tournament. And but yeah, I did have a couple of messages through saying I thought Rory sort of deserved that going into the decider, and deserves a bit of a loaded word in sport and maybe life itself. You sort of think, well, who's to sort of judge that? But I sort of knew what they meant. Rory played really well. He was really on the front foot in that, played some smashing snooker and got the win. And that was very late. Televised match beyond 1 o'clock in the morning, Phil. So on social media, I did the goodbye they always did on the Waltons. Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Elizabeth. Good night, everybody. That's going back a while, isn't it? I mean, that's an old television programme about an even older time. So, I mean, it really is. That's going back. But I love that night. That was great. I mean, good win for Rory Thor, but just a good night for the game. One of those close finishes. You must have loved that. That had Phil Haig written all over it.
Oh, big! I didn't even get to the end of that though. To be fair, I watched some of that, but I think I was working at 7 in the morning, so I didn't even get to the climax. But yeah, amazing for Rory Thor to beat Mark Williams and Neil Robertson. We're always talking about the Super in the same tournament. I mean, there has been a problem. This is not a new problem, but it's been shown in the last couple of tournaments. The old roll on, roll off games, and people coming on very, very late at night. Because I think they started till at least 10, if not 11 o'clock. And it's really tough for players not knowing when they're going to come on, and then yeah, starting not when you'd want to start a snooker match. But yeah, same for both players, but not ideal. But yeah, no, great evening entertainment there. And you mentioned it, it's another great win for Sam Moody. We've spoken a lot about the teenagers on tour doing well now, and to be a top 16 player, really excellent stuff. So yeah, yeah, plenty going on. Higgins against Murphy at that stage was one of the blockbuster ties, and I think that will have done John a lot of good confidence early on there. I mean, Sean didn't play his best, especially at the start, but probably helped John on his way to the final. That strong result against another top player.
No, definitely. And well, a few lines from day four when some players played twice, as we saw throughout the week. Judd Trump still on 999 centuries. This time he beat Mark Davis 4-2. Tetchayo New 4, Ricky Walden 3. Good breaks from Tetchayo in that, good scoring. 96 from him. Then breaks of 52 and 57 I noticed in frames he lost. Then he made 93, 88 and 115 to go from 3-1 down to a 4-3 win. So smashing effort from him. Oliver Lyons 4, Sonny Akane 3. Oliver Lyons, one of the stories of the week, of course. He was on Talking Snooker with us recently, talking about how he just wanted to enjoy the sport more. Well, he will have done that now, Phil. You're going to have to get to your line soon, aren't you? About, oh no, maybe not. Maybe not in Ollie's case. And then, as if enough wasn't happening, we had a 147. That's all, just a maximum, Phil. You know, boring all week, no storylines, just a maximum. Mark Allen doing it against Ben Mertens. Always a nice moment. And yeah, they don't go mad, do they, these days? Maybe that's a theme of. I mean, I'm not expecting they should do laps of honour and, you know, throw themselves on the table, but it's very sort of humble, isn't it? A little, you know, small little fist pumps maybe, but that's the way it goes. They're used to making them, a lot of these guys now.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like he almost forgot to sort of shake Merton's hand afterwards, wasn't it? But no, superb break, obviously. I suppose with these sort of 1,000 centuries stories knocking about that the 147 has sort of taken a back seat, but still an incredible achievement. Lovely to see, especially was it a couple of days after he'd asked the table to be burnt, which he then made the maximum on,
Yeah.
which is a lovely bit of narrative there. But yeah, no, he looked really good. There are a couple of crazy shots. The last ping even was very impressive. He left himself a bit tricky on that to get the black, but he did it perfectly. So I think he said afterwards, I think he's only 4. He doesn't feel like that's enough, so he might be trying to catch up on that in the years to come. But yeah, first mention Rolly Lyons, amazing run that we'll get to as he gets close to that semi-final which he reached. But beating Sonny Akane is no mean feat so far this season. Akane's picked up some very good wins and he's a tough player to beat. So yeah, that was encouraging signs for the Yorkshireman.
No, it really was. And we moved on to the last 16 then. Rory Thor's um, sort of run of beating, you know, wonderful snooker players came to an end at the hands of a wonderful snooker player. John Higgins won 4-0. It was Judd Trump 4, Stephen Maguire 2. Good news for Deja Vu fans, Phil. They were in Clover. Judd was still on 999 centuries. Ollie Lyons, Stan Moody, that was obviously billed as what a chance for both of them to get in the quarterfinals. And that was Ollie that did that, winning 4-1. David Gilbert 4, Lou Haushan 3. Smashing ended from Dave there. Breaks to 70 and 65 in the last 2 frames to win it from 3-2 down. Mark Selby 4, Tetchayo New 3. Unlike Mark to win a close one at this tournament, Phil. Breaks of 100 and 115. So he's getting his scoring boots on in that one. These are short matches, so 2 centuries, good scoring. Elliot Slesser 4, Kyren Wilson 2. The world champion out. And let's do the Kyren line now, shall we? Unhappy when he's not on table 1, frankly. And this has been kind of a long-running thing with Kyren, as we've known, you know, if you follow this sport. But it's set up a gear now. He's world champion. He clearly feels like he's not being respected. And that's not a dramatic way of me saying it. That's the line here. And he was on Talk Sport, wasn't he? And he said, and I quote from Kyren, my main gripe is not the fact I wasn't on the TV table. It's the fact there's no consistency. You keep getting told lies, whether it's the World Snooker Office or tournament promoters or TV channel, nobody is being transparent. He also suggested that other players, Mark Selby came up to him and sort of said he didn't think he was being treated particularly fairly. Mark Williams has made comments on social media as well. And his point is, well, sometimes people say it will be just the quality of the match. Sometimes it'll be ranking. He doesn't think it's a consistent thing. I mean, look, has Kyren got a point? In the past, when he has complained about this, people have said to him, essentially, you need to win more of the big stuff, Kyren. Well, now he's won the biggest tournament of the lot, and he's still often not on the main table. Or is Kyren just being a little bit naive? I mean, promoters and television channels always want more eyeballs. They want higher ratings. And obviously, the likes of Ronnie O'Sullivan and Judd Trump, but that's not a slight on Kyren. They're more popular than pretty much everyone in the game. So there are the more obvious candidates that will tend to dominate the TV tables. And, I know I've used this before. Don't always want to compare to other sports. It's a bit like when Federer's always on centre court at Wimbledon during that fortnight. That's not an exact I know a different nuance there, but it's a bit like that, or Andy Murray, or that's a very Brit-centric thing. But Djokovic, or all these big players. Same at any sort of tournaments. While they have, they're different kind of weights. Why they always put Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods at times during majors. That they make sure they play it one night on prime time television. It's all done like that, really, whatever sport it is, to some extent. And do you know what I thought? I'm going to take a leaf out of the book of that lovely man of the game, Gary Moss, who always says, or takes the chance when he can to see both sides. So I think I'm probably going to take both sides of this. What about you? Are you taking one side or the other on this one, or are you also on that fence?
No, yeah, sort of on the touching the fence, certainly. Yeah, no, I certainly feel his frustration. I get what he's saying that they do. It is very fluid, and I think that's what's frustrating because if he was just told these are the rules, this is how the tables are decided, but it just never quite works like that. I mean, that first, what I think was the first time he complained was that English Open, wasn't he? When
Ding,
Ding
was
was
it?
on the
Yeah.
main one, and he was the higher ranked player, and they usually told it's the highest ranked player, but that was because it was a morning session. They do that for the Chinese market, so it made sense, but it was frustrating for him, and I think again, but they just like.
Curses! That I'm just hamming it up for our YouTube audience, Phil, with this shaking of
Am I
the fist.
back? Am I there?
That you are here. Carry on.
Good. Yeah, so I mean, it was frustrating again because obviously he's the high ranked player, but I think well, not any, but Selby Tepchai was the tastiest looking game, so they clearly have picked that over Wilson Slessor. But from a fan's point of view, then you're glad they've done that because I think most people would rather watch Selby against Tepchai, and it proved to be a very good game. So yeah, I mean, I get his frustration because it's hard to know what's going to happen, and he feels like he's putting himself in the best position to get the best treatment, but it's just not like that. So, it's where sports and entertainment mix, don't they? And you can't have everything purely based on sporting merit, which will frustrate people because if some people feel like it should just be that. But it's also an entertainment game. So it's where the two mix, isn't it? If he was never on the TV table, then I would feel terrible for him and he would have a really serious point. But he was for at least one or two games, wasn't he? So I think as long as there's a mix and he's on there sometimes, he wasn't booted out to table four, was he? He was on the streaming table, table two. You think of how many times, some of the all-time greats. How often do you go through a tournament, get to the quarterfinals, and that's the first time you've seen Mark Williams? He's been out on an outside table for the whole thing. So it does happen. I think for Kyren, he's just got to not let it bother him. Keep doing what he's doing. He's doing all the right things. And certainly don't let it affect his game because that's when it would really be an issue.
Yeah, wise words there. You summed it up generally, but nice way of saying it. You haven't had one of those for absolutely ages. just to complete that last 16 stage, Jack Jones beat Luca Purcell 4-2. And Mark Allen had to battle hard. He beat Chris Wakelin 4-3. And generally, Allen was showing a return to something like his sort of better form this week. He was saying he feels he's getting really close to his best, actually. We've done about half an hour, so let's come back in a couple of moments' time. But first of all, say you are listening to the Talking Snooker podcast here with Phil Haigh and Nick Metcalf. Phil, the British Open then, and we've done the last 16 there, and maybe I'll do the quarters results and then go to you for a word generally on those two rounds. John Higgins beat Elliot Slesser 5-1 in the last 8, breaks of 1-3-2, 63 and 102 from Higgins. Not much of a contest there, very good from John. Mark Selby 5, David Gilbert 4. I didn't see that actually, but it sounded really good. I wish I had. Gilbert staged a real recovery, didn't he? He was 4-1 down, came back to 4-4. Selby got the job done. But I was watching that night, and that's on Friday night now, aren't we? And Judd Trump, he did get his 1000th century. But as so often, that was another humble reaction. Mark Allen said that's what he's like. He's a humble guy, Mark, making that point. But as so often it seems with achievements, the match was lost. It was Mark Allen that won it 5-3. And Oliver Lyons 5, Jack Jones 4. That's momentous in a way. That's a big word, I know, but it felt getting that way, certainly for Ollie, getting to a first ranking event semi-final. Big moment for him. So yeah, loads to talk about the last 16 and last 8 stage. Bill, fill your boots. He's playing well, isn't he, Gilbert? Against most other guys, he might have won that.
Yeah. I mean, he's very consistent this season. Top 16 level consistency, but he just needs to. That's what people talk about with the rankings. You know that you really need to go at least to a final to get the big boost up the rankings. But he's certainly playing consistently as top 8, top 16 player. He did get a couple of slices of luck on that comeback to a decider, but was still very good. So Selby did well to get over the line after that sort of rampage back, but he'd been very used to getting over the line in deciders. So no, it was a good game, and they seem to play each other reasonably regularly. Those two, and they practice together as well. A good little rivalry. And yeah, I didn't see much of Allen and Trump, to be honest, but I did catch the second half of Lyons against Jones, and really good stuff from Ollie. You know, to get into his first semi-final, he was up against it. Won the last two frames with breaks 70 plus in both, and the decider, he sort of got. I think a red came up from Jones's break, so he got a relatively easy starter, but then it was really, really good break in a really pressurized situation. One of the biggest frames of his career, really, to get into the semi-final. So yeah, impressive stuff. And like he was saying on here, he needed to be sort of see something from himself to start believing, and that was exactly the kind of thing that should give you the belief. So yeah, it was nice to see from Ollie. Really pleased for him. So yeah, it was a fantastic semi-final lineup from there, with obviously the wild card that was Ollie Lyons in there for the first time, and then Selby against Allen. It was just a sort of I think I call it a slobber knocker on social media, but yeah, a real bruising encounter.
I've forgotten that. Where's that from then?
That's a wrestling term, actually. That.
Oh, it's a wrestling thing. That makes sense. Yeah, you got people loving that. Yeah. Yeah, the first one seems to have been a few of these Saturday afternoon ones recently, actually. Yeah, it was over again. I was on the way to work, and it was my Saturday shift, and it was pretty much done and dusted. 6-0 for Higgins. I think he said he started to feel sorry for Ollie at one stage. You know, it's just nothing seemed to really go for him in the match, and you know, it's one of those where it'll take a lot, I think, generally from how that went, and I'm sure it'll take a lot from playing one of the game's greats on that big stage. But Higgins got himself into the final, and that pretty much did it for getting back in the top 16, didn't it? So that was good stuff for him. And then Selby Allen, well, what I took from that was Selby doesn't always he's not the one that's often would come out and say, yeah, I played really well, but he did. He said, I played really well there. Allen came back a bit, but Selby was a really good winner. I mean, Mark, didn't score badly. Only got, I say only won 3 frames. Still, 6-3 is not thumping win by any means, but Alan made 62, 51, 30, and 50. But Selby was really strong. 105, 52, 95, and 77 from him. So yeah, he was giving himself glowing reviews. So were the rest of us. And we were set up with that great final. We'll pick it two world finals, of course, 07 and 17, and there's one win each in those. So I've forgotten the result of the poll now. I think it might have been about 70-30 roundabout, the one that I normally do. And I think I did it all rather than the actual Talking Snooker account. But that was about, I think, generally what people were thinking, weren't they? That Selby was a pretty good favourite. But obviously, he ended up winning it 10-5. But yeah, great stuff, Wally Lyons, we've been saying. Better from Mark Allen. Good, very good from John Higgins. And excellent from Selby. I sound like a teacher giving out marks, Phil. Of course, God.
Yeah, well, all semi-finalists done brilliantly to get there, and yeah, I hope Ollie's taking the positives already. To lose 6-0 is bruising, but it's a super week for him, and hopefully we'll have learnt from playing with our masters there. And yeah, Selby, he said actually that reminded me you saying that after one of his first couple of games, he said something like, "I'm playing okay, I'm playing all right," which in some snooker players speak means I'm playing absolutely dynamite, But when they say something as sort of banal sounding as I'm playing all right, it usually means something a lot more. And he was playing all right for sure. It'd take a lot of deciders, but you need to be playing well to get through that number of them, and just got better and better. So, I mean, to finish it off by beating Gilbert, Allen, Higgins. Gilbert's one of the form players of the season, and Allen and Higgins speak for themselves. So yeah, thoroughly, thoroughly impressive. And he said he's sort of been down on himself a bit, and he's struggling to sort of have full confidence in himself because he says he's playing really well in practice, but as soon as it doesn't feel like it's coming out in the match table, then he starts to think, "Oh, why is this happening? I'm gone again." But this should give him the confidence going forward. So yeah, just like we said with Neil Robertson the previous week. Uh, Another of the big beasts is back and looking very dangerous again.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, in general terms, Phil, I mean, the conditions got a bit of an airing again for the second week running, really. And actually worse criticism than Brentwood got, I think. I mean, the weather didn't help. All kinds of funny old weather, some very heavy rain, flooding around Cheltenham, and that area generally of the country. So I know that players felt that the conditions weren't great, but obviously, they weren't bad enough for someone not to get a maximum. So you've got to point that out. But I think the tables ended up getting reclocked a bit earlier than usual, don't they? Or a day earlier. So that was ended up sort of, the players were listened to, and that's a good thing. Looked decent crowds to me. Wasn't there at the tournament, but you can get a fairly good idea from television. They got bigger, certainly. I thought they were healthy-ish, certainly a lot better than the first year they went to Cheltenham. When I was starting thinking, is this really going to be the right venue? But obviously, I'm very much one for giving chances. Said that when Hull only got that one and done. You build things up, and they seem to be, okay now. And I'm sure when people got a bit more of an idea as the week went on as to who was playing what, rather than the sort of slightly messy early week, that would have helped as well with crowds. ITV coverage good. ITVX frustrating. No good for our game, Phil. You can't do anything with it. You can't even rewind. Someone said to me you can't rewind because of the adverts thing, but I'm not sure I'd buy that. I've never had and never will have a problem with watching adverts on ITV. That's how they pay for the service. Yeah, of course I'm human. Sometimes it's a bit, fourth or fifth advert in a row. But no, that's not the issue. I wouldn't mind rewinding and having to watch 5 adverts. But the fact you can't, I find it just bizarre. And this, you do so much, even on services that should be lesser, far smaller channels, far smaller operations than ITV, which is a major, major channel in this country. And, the fact that its streaming service to me seems so basic, it's just frustrating. But there we are. Lots to talk about, as there always is for these tournaments. And ITV is good for that, actually. I don't know if it's the way they frame things, or the way they put things out. Hendry's always good for a quote, of course, but they tend to sort of be quite good for getting, stories out. And their own output now in terms of putting stuff out on social media is very good. And I say that is important, I think. I'm not really into TikTok or things like that, but I know that sort of clips and little bits here and there, and I think that's getting the game's getting more and more like that. It's a long form game. Every frame takes a certain amount of time, but it doesn't mean you can't sell it to different parts of society as well with clips. So I always think that's sort of doing pretty well. But yeah. So lots to talk about as ever, and I say the conditions were really talked about a lot by players, but at least, as I say, they were listened to, which is what they would say is a good thing, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, players do come across sort of moany a bit sometimes, but they expect the best, and I think it's fair to expect the best. And to be fair, they're only going to complain more because World Snooker did change the cloth sooner than they planned to because of the complaints, and then there were no complaints after that, as far as I saw. I think everyone said it was brilliant from the quarterfinals onwards. So yeah, people, unless you play at a certain level, really don't understand how much difference it makes. And, I'm not saying I play at that level, but I'm saying that I don't understand how you can watch a game. It's not that obvious. But these guys know what they're talking about, and they wouldn't be moaning about it unless there was good reason. Um, as was proved by the change of the cloth and it being good. But yeah, no, the crowds I thought sounded good. I've not been to the venue, but I've only heard good reviews. Really, seems to be a good home for whether it's this tournament permanently or I'm sure we'll be going back there in years to come with something. So yeah, encouraging all round. Really, ITV I thought did brilliantly on with all the coverage of Clive's sad passing. I thought that was had all the right people there to do all that, and I think they did it brilliantly. So fair play for that. Yeah, no, another enjoyable week. You're right about Hendry. I think he's always reliable for in our game. But I like how they just pop him in the commentary box for the odd bit as well. He's mainly a pundit, but I heard him once or twice just in the commentary box as well. And I think he really adds to that as well. So yeah, good stuff all around.
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, the cue ball moved one time, didn't it, when Job was
Oh, that was
playing?
with Judd when
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah, yeah,
I mean, in fairness to the players, it's not
yeah, yeah.
great. So that was the British Open. Then, congratulations to Mark Selby and to all those who put the tournament on. And well, there's quite a few other sort of matters to catch up on before we sign off, Phil. Um, Northern Ireland Open qualifying to see who goes to Belfast. I saw Ken Doherty said he couldn't make his match because of TV commitments, but some other guy called Jimmy White has won. I've asked around, Phil. Nobody seems to know who the man is, but he's off to Belfast. So good luck to him.
Yeah, incredible. Where's he come from? Yeah, what a result today to beating Jackson Page 4-3. Jackson is inconsistent, but he's a very good player. Yeah, and he beaten Paul Deville in the first round. So, yeah, Jimmy on the way to Belfast. I'm sure he'd have been there anyway for Eurosport, but he'll be there with his cue in his hand. So, yeah, that's a superb achievement. Still going strong at 62 years old. It's yeah, remarkable stuff, really. And a couple of other ones that I noted on Sunday was Stan Moody picking up another fine win. We were talking about him earlier, beat Ben Wilson 4-3 to get to Belfast. And that was a remarkable game, really. Ben was 3-1 up, having made 71-59 and a 1-3-3.
Mhm.
And then Stan needed to win the next three, and he did with a 96-64 and a 58. So, yeah, Stan's been really impressive. He certainly, he'd done all right actually for his first year, but it wasn't sort of fireworks, but seems to have really stepped up. And another man we seem to mention a lot, Bulkshu Reves, another great win for him. He beat Boyko in the first round and then beat Robbie Williams 4-0 to get to Belfast. He doesn't seem to be knocking in a huge amount of centuries like some of the other guys, but he wins a lot of close frames and makes enough half centuries to get over, which is in a way I find quite encouraging because he's clearly sort of worked out the scrappy side of the game quite early on in his career. So yeah, very impressive. So they were the ones that stood out to me, and then we're straight on to the international championship qualifying as well. So 2 more days of that, or 3 more days of that in Sheffield as well. So busy old time.
Very much so, Phil. And not long before the next tournament, which what we love as we head into the autumn, heading into October now, of course, and well, the Wuhan Open begins next Sunday. You can see a full list of matches on snooker.org, our friends who did such a brilliant job on that service. But a few I picked out. World champion Kyren Wilson's got Liam Davis, so real test for the youngster there, for Liam, see how he can get on against someone, obviously, at the very, very top of the game. Neil Robertson's playing Jackson Page. That will be another one that certainly to look out for. Neil, of course, recently the English Open winner last weekend, in fact. Mark Allen, Jamie Clark let out me a bit. I thought that rings a bell. That was the World Championship match during the COVID year when Neil got. Mark got a fair bit of stick for being a bit not fair. That's a bit over the top, but there was some talk. He was a bit over friendly with Jamie Clark. That was Jamie Clark's debut, I think. I think Mark was a bit over, but Jamie ended up claiming a famous 10-8 win in that match. Jimmy White again can't keep a good man down. He's got Nop on Siankam. And Sean Murphy, Anthony Hamilton, two mates of yours there, Phil. First match in the Northern Ireland Trophy in 2007. So they should know each other's game by now.
Yeah, for sure. And we were talking before it came on air. The qualifying for this feels a long time ago. It's easy to forget that we actually lost a few players already, most notably the new British Open champion Mark Selby, who was beaten 5-4 by Long Zhihuang in qualifying. So yeah, maybe he'll want a bit of time off after a grueling week with a lot of deciders, but also he'll be full of confidence and playing well. So a bit of a shame to miss out, but he could put his feet up for a week. Why not? But there are a couple of others. Tom Ford, who's really having a stinking season so far, it's got to be said. He lost out in qualifying. Bingham went out early. Couple of Luca Brazil, of course, lost to Dwayne Jones. So yeah, I mean, there's some. If you're watching the Wuhan Open next week and wondering where some of these guys are, we did lose a few pretty substantial names early on, but plenty of other big names though. We're expecting Ronnie O'Sullivan to be back. Not seen him for a bit, but he's down to play Mitchell Mann in his opener.
Yes, I saw that. What he's got, Mitchell Mann. Yes, so well, we look forward to that. As I say, that if you're listening in the Far East, it'll be prime time for you, and people do listen to us there, but the majority of our listeners are I think, European based. It's fair to say Northern Hemisphere. So a lot of the viewing will be breakfast for us, and then lunchtime, as you say. For the years we had in the pandemic, away from that, we're kind of enjoying that. Feels a bit sort of new again doing that, which is great. And of course, well, on the subject of time difference, even more dramatic one for those of us in the UK is with Australia, and the Australian Women's Open is coming up. That starts on Saturday and will continue through until next Tuesday. That tournament being played at the Mounties Club in Sydney. On Yi, the defending champion there. And that club looks smashing, by the way. Looking at some photos, top venue. And we wish good luck to everyone that taking part. When was the last time you said good day to our mates down in Oz, Phil?
I've only been once. When was that? Probably 8 or 9 years ago. One of my best pals moved out there for a few years. So yeah, I went to Sydney and then went up to Cairns. Amazing. Loved it. What a place.
Oh, I totally agree with you. Now, the last time I went to Australia, Phil, I spent a very enjoyable evening with Richie Benno. Now, how does that for a bit of name dropping?
Oh, hello. Superb.
That was the Museum of Sydney. That truly was a wonderful voice of sport. Talk about gravitas. He virtually invented the word. And I used to love it when Richie. I might have said this when John Virgo joined us. I could hear Richie talk about anything, and he was just brilliant with it. But I used to love his stories of young people, particularly I think in Australia. So did you play the game, Richie? And of course he was one of Australia's greatest captains, greatest players, but a long time ago. But yeah, what an incredible voice and memories he gave us all. So that tournament's coming up, and we'll look forward to following that. And of course, in terms of main tour action, Wuhan coming up, and before that qualifying. So that may be all it for snooker, Phil. I feel we've done about 45, 50 minutes. That's about right, I think, for podcasts, isn't it? We sometimes do double that at least, but maybe let's go to any other business, shall we? And Premier League had a weekend off, Phil. No action, nothing happened. Nothing happened at all. I've been watching a fair bit of the golf. Against my better judgment, I really like the President's Cup. United States win every time, which is a bit of a drawback to any event, but it's kind of enjoyable. They won it again. They beat the international team. What else happened? South Africa won the Rugby Championship over this weekend. And, well, it's a bit mean, really, but I thought if you want a cheap laugh, Phil, I don't know if you caught any of the fans at the England Australia match today. I mean, they looked so cold and bedraggled. It was kind of farcical. I mean, I
At the
think,
cricket.
yeah, the cricket. I mean, I was thinking, we're big Lemsip fans, aren't we? I mean, sales of Lemsip will go through the roof in the Bristol area this week. I mean, September the 29th is no date in this country for international cricket, is it?
Yeah, no, ridiculous. I don't know what they're doing, really. I think there's some very sensible people who run cricket really in this country, but they make some very odd decisions. But yeah, what are they doing playing that then? When there was almost no international cricket in August,
Yeah.
just bizarre. But it was quite a good match though for what you saw of it. I had it on for half an hour watching Brook and Duckett smashing it all over the park. So, but yeah, no, very very odd. But better news on the cricket front. My boys Yorkshire got promoted back to the top flight where they belong. So that was good news.
You don't normally get people from Yorkshire sort of selling that county in effusive terms. They normally like to hide you like under a bushel. I mean, there was a time recently when you rascals were putting Yorkshire in the medal table. Actually, I'm being flippant, but I couldn't blame you. They were doing bloody well. Was it the London Games? They were like seventh or something. There we
There's a
are.
reason I got this beautiful flag behind me here.
Oh wow.
What a place. Yeah, no, they were. I mean, it was London. They were smashing it. And when, I mean, on a day where Yorkshire finished on 726 for seven declared, that I'm allowed to talk about how great they are.
Do you know what? By the way, I was thinking I don't know what you're doing that for. No one watches our YouTube coverage, but 100 subscribers,
It's not bad, is
little acorns, Phil.
it?
They eventually end up being trees, don't they? Um, I think that's about it, isn't it? Really. I think we should go. Unless you've got anything more to say.
No, well, these qualifiers coming up, they're especially good, these next ones, the International Championship, because they're very big names. You know, we've got Mark Williams playing, you know, people of that ilk. Mark Selby's in action on Tuesday. I'm just quickly looking down. Sean Murphy against Louis Heathcote on Tuesday. So yeah, there are a couple of held over ones to the venue, but um, most of the players are in this, and fans can pop into Ponsford in Sheffield. So if you're in the area, then do go see it. And I don't know if we mentioned Q Tour's coming up probably before we're back. Q Tour 3 in Sweden. So traveling all over the shop there. They're in Bulgaria last time, Sweden this time, this weekend. So yeah, very very busy time this snooker calendar, isn't it?
It is, and I said this before. We often go on about prices, and I'm as guilty as the next person. And we sort of mean the biggest tournaments, and we often mean the Crucible. But actually, you get yourself down to old Fons Porge in the next few days, you'll probably spend a few shillings and see some of the game's greats there. So, and not many will go. I think I'm right in saying. I hope I'm wrong. I hope loads go, but I'm sure there'll be just a few people go. But you can get nice old value, especially if you can spare a bit of time in the daytime as well.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, there's some lovely matches. I'm just looking here. Schedule for Monday night: John Higgins against Ken Doherty. Schedule for Monday morning: Anthony Hamilton against Jimmy White. So yeah, no, plenty going on. Judd Trump's there. So yeah, I think it's 10 or 12 quid for the day. So if you are in the area, worth popping in. You can pop for a trampoline lesson or a little swim in the break. Do whatever you want.
If you get yourself a video of you doing trampolining in between the qualifier, I'll send. I don't know how many double deckers will I send you? A dozen. And that's a lot of nougat.
Yeah, it is.
It could be worth doing it.
I wouldn't want to go trampolining after 12 double deckers.
Oh dear! I salute you and say thank you for your company and well done to Mark Selby, the British Open champion. We'll be back next time, Phil. When we'll be into Wuhan then and various other snooker matters as well. And yeah, really enjoy this episode and thank you for sharing it with me.
No, pleasure as always. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for watching. And sorry again about my bloody internet issues. I'll sort it one day, but today's not that day. But thanks for sticking with us, and we'll be back soon.
Keep your thoughts coming to us on any snooker matter. Tweet us at Talking Snooker or email talkingsnooker@yahoo.com. Tweet us at Talking Snooker or email talkingsnooker@yahoo.com. For now, from your old friends, Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf, Cheerio.